From filmmaker Chuck Russell comes the 1987 fantastical horror epic that not only marks the third entry in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise as a whole, but one that saw the return of the franchise's original final girl, Nancy Thompson, featuring a plot that was more ambitious than its two predecessors, both in scope and spectacle. The film manages to deliver on the goods in almost every regard, and to this day is considered to be one of the best, if not the best entries out of the entire Nightmare franchise. Let's take a look at A Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Dream Warriors. If there was one entry in the Nightmare franchise that loomed largest in my mind, it would most definitely be Dream Warriors. I don't recall whether or not this was the first Nightmare film that I ever saw, and keep in mind, I saw Freddy's Dead in theaters when I was 4 years old going on 5. And even by that point in time, I had already seen every other movie in the franchise prior to that point. But Dream Warriors is definitely the entry that has stuck with me the most, occupying the most real estate within my brain when it comes to the titular razor-gloved madman. Judging by my positivity about the film right out of the gate, you can probably see where this review is headed, but I would be lying to all of you if I started trying to make up things I had an issue with, and let's be honest, I'd be lying to myself as well. The film is simply a spectacle on every level, and it's difficult to really expand on that if you're someone who, for some reason, has yet to see the film. From its set pieces to its visual effects, from the acting chops of our cast to the humble beginnings of what eventually became known as MTV Freddy down the road in later films, Dream Warriors is an absolute delight of a horror movie that is both grand in scope and rich in atmosphere.
Put me down, you're hurting me.
A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, tells the story of Elm Street teenager Kristen Parker, played by a very young Patricia Arquette, who, while dreaming, stumbles upon the malevolent dream demon himself, Freddy Krueger, portrayed once again by the formidable Robert Englund, who in turn mercilessly slices her wrists amid this truly heart-stopping nightmare. But the terror truly escalates when Kristen's hapless mother misconstrues the incident as a suicide attempt, leading to the teenager being admitted to the infamous Weston Hills psychiatric facility, a place filled with a number of other afflicted adolescents, just like Kristen.
Nothing like a little cheery news to start the day, huh?
Yeah. Say, listen, Doc, I got a new theory about all these suicides, right?
Don't hold back on us, Max. We need all the help we can get.
Yeah, well, it's fucked up chromosomes, man. Think about it. All their parents dropped acid during the 60s.
Well, beat Sim's theory. She thinks it's nothing but sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Shit, that's what keeps people alive.
After realizing that these teenagers, including Kristen herself, are all experiencing similar nightmares to one another, and real-life injuries in the real world thereafter, due to run-ins with Freddy Krueger in the dream world, the group, aided by Dr. Neil Gordon, played by Craig Wasson, and the original survivor herself, Nancy Thompson, played again by Heather Langenkamp, realize they must collectively enter the nightmarish landscape of Freddy's domain together in order to stop him once and for all. New Line Cinema faced uncertainty regarding the future of the franchise following the disappointing reception of A Nightmare on Elm Street 2: Freddy's Revenge. Wes Craven, the creator of the original film, opted out of involvement in the sequel to prevent it from becoming an ongoing series. However, he agreed to co-write the script for the third installment, with the intention of concluding the series due to the negative response of the second film. Surprisingly, the success of Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors persuaded the studio to continue the franchise.
You can call me Nancy.
All right, you call me Neil, all right? What was that nursery rhyme all about?
That was just something that the kids say to keep the boogeyman away.
Initially, Craven envisioned a concept for the third film where Freddy Krueger would enter the real world and torment the actors during the filming of the sequel. However, New Line Cinema rejected this idea, which was eventually utilized in Craven's later film, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Craven was unable to direct the third film himself, as he was occupied with the production of Deadly Friend. Both John Saxon and Robert Englund independently developed their own scripts for the third film before the studio settled on a final script. Saxon's script, titled How the Nightmare on Elm Street All Began, presented a prequel narrative depicting Freddy as an innocent individual framed for the murders by Charles Manson and his followers. The parents of the victims would then take justice into their own hands and lynch Freddy after a false confession, leading him to seek revenge on their children. Englund's script, named Freddy's Funhouse, focused on the older sister of Tina Gray, who returns to Springwood to investigate her sister's murder. In the script, Freddy claims ownership of the infamous 1428 Elm Street house and sets up traps resembling those devised by Nancy in the original film. Portions of Englund's scripts were eventually incorporated into the pilot episode of Freddy's Nightmares, after remaining unused for several years.
Oh my God.
Lisa Wilcox and Leslie Deanne, who would go on to portray Alice Johnson and Tracy respectively in later installments of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, both disclosed that they had auditioned for roles in Dream Warriors before. At the start of filming, there were plans to replace Patricia Arquette, who played Kristen, but the director Chuck Russell stepped in and ensured her retention. Producer Sarah Risher stated that a significant amount of time was dedicated to interviewing and auditioning actresses for the role of Marcy, played by Stacey Alden, the seductive nurse who entices Joey in his dreams, only to reveal herself as Freddy. Initially, the intention was for Marcy to transform into She-Freddy, with Alden wearing Freddy's mask. However, this concept was abandoned due to concerns raised by Roy H. Wagner about the appearance of the character. Instead, the filmmakers decided to have the nurse employ prehensile tongues to attack Joey and subsequently swap positions with Englund's Freddy. In the original shooting script, Sally Kellerman was slated to appear on Dick Cavette's talk show. However, Cavette personally selected Zsa Zsa Gabor after being given the opportunity to choose the guest he wanted to have on his show and be targeted by Freddy. Robert Englund recollects that Gabor's reactions and dialogue were entirely improvised, since she did not read the script or familiarize herself with the Nightmare on Elm Street films prior to filming. Gabor's genuine responses can be observed in the fabricated talk show scene where she is interviewed by Dick Cavett, only for Freddy to unexpectedly leap out and attack her. While the acting chops of some of the film's cast members are expectedly blah, I am happy to report that the majority of the Dream Warriors cast members, including but not limited to Patricia Arquette, Heather Langenkamp, John Saxon, and Craig Wasson, are perfectly on point, bringing true sincerity to their respective parts, allowing us to dive headfirst into the story and become truly immersed in its atmosphere with ease. And by the time the momentum of this film really gets going, we as the audience really do feel like we are along for the ride, as if we are with these characters on this journey, battling Freddy Krueger, and all of that beautifully bloody jazz. To film the Weston Hills Psychiatric Hospital exteriors, the crew used the Rolls-Royce Hall building on the University of California, Los Angeles campus, while St. Brendan Catholic Church was chosen for the church scenes. The boiler room scenes were filmed in a converted warehouse opposite the Los Angeles County Jail. Going back to what I previously said about Dream Warriors really being the beginning of what would become MTV Freddy, Freddy Krueger in this movie is absolutely unlike the Freddy we met in the original film, and definitely not the frightening version he was in Freddy's Revenge. Dream Warriors Freddy, somehow, is knowable. Not necessarily likable, not necessarily some kind of horror hero we as the audience root for. Keep in mind, this guy is still a child murderer after all, but an entity that almost seems to be aware of the presence of the audience watching the movie, as if he's putting on a show and winking at us from behind the film emulsion, from behind the TV screen. He's more talkative in this movie, he's funnier, his antics are a bit more outlandish and extravagant. I mean, when it comes to the pop culture Freddy we all know and love from the 80s, this is really where that era began. Not to say that he's not scary anymore in this film. The guy is still doing horrible things to these people and enjoying every moment of it, but the way this film embraces these dream sequences and handles the deaths of these characters is more a show of spectacle than it is a grisly experience. Think about the TV screen kill in Dream Warriors, aka the classic welcome to primetime bitch moment. The way it's executed within the movie is almost funny. Horrible for the character herself. That chick died in a horrible, horrible way, but it's executed in a way that provides us more with a showy spectacle of effects and imagination than the seriously played and downbeat on-screen death it could have been if done differently. Compare this death with Tina's elongated and seriously disturbing death in the original film, being dragged up the walls and onto the ceiling, screaming, being slashed and sliced and diced until finally succumbing to her injuries. Not played for laughs whatsoever, completely serious, completely shocking, and totally horrifying. That's the best way to describe the shift in tone from the original film and even some of the second film to Dream Warriors.
Are you okay? I think so. He's gone. It's over!
The special effects team, led by Peter Chesney and featuring Kevin Yeager and Mark Shostrom, took charge of the film's special effects and delivered some of the franchise's most outstanding work. These iconic sequences have not only made an indelible mark on the minds of horror enthusiasts worldwide, but have also become ingrained in the very fabric of popular culture. They perfectly captured the prevailing horror trends of that era, from the remarkable Freddy puppet, the menacing snake, the infamous TV demise, and the hellish bed, to the chilling injection and the epic junkyard scene, where Dr. Neil Gordon and Don Thompson confront Freddy's claymation skeleton. Dream Warriors is a treasure trove of awe-inspiring special effects, captivating dream sequences, and unforgettable death scenes. Every moment immerses you completely. In a surprising turn of events, Nancy, the original final girl of Elm Street, also meets her demise in this film. It's an astonishing thing to contemplate in retrospect. They actually killed off the iconic heroine of the series up to this point. What's more, it was a conclusive ending because Langenkamp didn't reappear in the series until 1994's New Nightmare, and even then, she portrayed herself, not Nancy Thompson. Therefore, when Freddy takes her life in Dream Warriors, it leaves a lasting impact. The original score for this movie is also fantastic, thanks to composer Angelo Badalamenti, and while Dawkins' Dream Warriors is the movie's most undisputedly memorable piece of music, I think Angelo's score perfectly captures the world of Dream Warriors, and is very underrated as far as scores go. Among the 3 Nightmare films thus far in the franchise, Badalamenti's score is hands down my favorite. All in all, Dream Warriors is a beautifully crafted sequel that, in isolation, would have worked great as the final chapter of the Elm Street trilogy, if they had stopped making movies after this one, which again, thankfully they did not. The acting is great, the story is great, the effects are out of this world, and continue to be charming even in this day and age. The pace moves right along, the set pieces are inventive, the dream sequences are imaginative, and Freddy Krueger kicks all kinds of ass in this movie. This is really the onset of MTV-era Freddy, and we are absolutely here for it. This has to be my all-time favorite Nightmare movie of the bunch, and although I sometimes go back and forth between this one and The Dream Master, Dream Warriors, I think, is the better made film, and surely the one closest to my heart. With all of that said, 1987's horror epic, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, is a crystal skull.